Welcome everyone to our fifth and final webinar in our series with the Heat Smart FLX South program. Heat your water smarter, not harder. So we're going to be doing a session on heat pump water heaters 101, exploring the ins and out of all the different types. Thank you for those of you who are listening in via Zoom. If you have any questions or comments, please feel free to put those in the chat. Thank you, Kevin. Kevin will be monitoring those today. We'll also be taking some pauses at various parts of our program today for any questions. So if you're calling in, you can unmute and we'll go ahead with that. If you are tuning in via Facebook Live, welcome as well. We are not monitoring that chat right now, but if you have any comments or questions, please put those in and I will follow up after the presentation today. All right, so again, I'm Erica Herman, the Campaign Director, and let's go ahead. Our Heat Smart FLX South is a community-based heat pump campaign. We have over 20 sister programs spread across New York State, and we are all supported by NYSERDA, New York State Energy and Research Development Authority. Our specific branch covers the counties of Schuyler, Seneca, Steuben, and Yates. And we're actually based right in the Cornell Cooperative Extension office in Schuyler and work really closely with our sister programs. We also work with many partners and local governments and many more folks. So what is the focus of our Heat Smart program? We're here to empower folks to enable you to adopt heat pumps, of which you'll be chatting about one in particular very soon. And also for weatherization efforts as well for any income or interest. So goals again are decreasing heating and cooling costs while increasing and upping the health and safety and comfort levels, and of course lowering our fossil fuel usage for friendlier carbon footprint. The average home energy use for water heating, these are actually really interesting numbers. So looking at the bigger picture before we dive in a bit deeper, about 15 to 20% of our energy usage for our home goes to domestic hot water. That can average about $400 to $600 a year, minding that some of us are on propane, electric resistance, maybe you're on oil, et cetera. So just looking at a bit of an average. So every day, many homes are actually using about 64 gallons of water. That's quite a bit. I'm thinking about that in terms of milk I used to drink, and it took me quite a while to get through that many gallons. So by adopting heat pump water heaters, we can definitely bring the price down when it comes to the costs compared to other traditional domestic hot water systems. Where are we when it comes to climate change and kind of wrapping all of this together to get a bigger picture? About 30% of our greenhouse gas emissions are coming from our homes, our places of work, houses of faith, where we shop and go. And of course, some of that, as we mentioned just a bit ago, comes from our hot water heating. So by switching over to heat pump water heaters, we can continue to bring that number down. We support a lot of folks with our program, homeowners, renters, landlords, small businesses, as well as nonprofits. So if you have any questions, please connect. There's a fit for everyone. Okay, so some of you may have tuned into our Heat Pump 101 session a few weeks ago, but for some of you, this may be a bit new. How does a heat pump work? So no matter whether you're looking at a heat pump for heating and cooling needs or for your hot water needs, which we'll be discussing today, a lot of this is pretty much the same. So for traditional heating needs, we're usually doing some kind of combustion or burning something to create that heat. Whereas a heat pump functions by using the existing heat around it, whether it's from the air near it or from the ground, even in the winter time, yes, year round. Heat pumps in general will transfer heat into or out of a space to heat or cool. So into a room to heat it, out of a room to cool it. In this case, with the heat pump water heaters, we're going to be putting that heat into the heat pump water heater because we want to do the heating aspect. You actually have had a heat pump in your home and growing up all along. It's called your refrigerator. Your refrigerator is a type of heat pump, except it only works in cooling mode. So if you ever were used to the old-fashioned refrigerators where you have the coils on the back and you're told, don't touch that, it's hot. It's because of that same action for cooling mode for heat pumps where we're pulling heat out to get a cooling space. So let's dive right in a bit more. There are a couple different solutions when it comes to domestic hot water needs. and heat pump options. There is what is called an air source heat pump water heater. And then there are also a couple different types of ground source heat pump water heaters that we'll be going into more detail about. So air source heat pump water heaters are actually commonly called heat pump water heaters, which can get kind of confusing because the overall umbrella is heat pump water heaters, but that is a common term you'll hear, not so much air source heat pump water heater. It's also a bit of a mouthful. But anyway, these types of systems provide 100% of domestic hot water needs. They run off electric. Actually, all the heat pump water heaters we'll be chatting about today run off electric, which makes them really efficient in how they are set up. They love living in your basement, and we're going to dive into more details of why that is that they love living in basements. And they are a bit taller than your average water heater, just to be transparent, it doesn't come as a surprise. Their lifespan is great, at minimum 10 years, but usually plus, which makes them a great fit for longevity. And as we mentioned, heat pump water heater is the common name we see for this type. So how do they function? How do they work? So heat pump water heaters, air source based ones, are standalone systems. If you are familiar, maybe in your home, you have like a boiler system where your hot water is actually connected to the same system. This is its own thing all by itself. So you'll have a typical type of like a water heater system, except that the top part, which I like to call the brain of the system, is the heat pump portion. So it will actually use that indoor air in the basement to help take the heat from that to do the hot water heating needs for your home. Say you might have had a couple additions to the family. Maybe it's a holiday and a bunch of people are over. Whatever reason, you're using a lot more hot water than usual. If it gets to the point where it can't keep up with the capacity, functioning solely as the heat pump version, then it'll switch to what's called electric resistance heating. So if you have an electric water heater currently in your home, that's what that runs off, electric resistance heating, which tends to be a bit more expensive. But these really run really efficiently, so that's not as common to see that going to electric resistance. So what are some of the benefits of this? What are some of the pros and cons when I'm trying to make a decision? What kind of water heater am I ready to adopt to my home? Well, something that puts heat pump water heaters strides ahead is that they are 2 to 3 times more energy efficient than your standard water heaters, even on-demand water heaters. I like to think of on-demand water heaters as kind of the CFLs, otherwise known as compact fluorescent light bulbs in the water heating world. You think of like traditional light bulbs where you used to have the incandescents, which are extremely not efficient and cost a lot to run. The CFLs did a lot better, but then the LEDs came out and those were the best. So heat pump water heaters definitely come out strides ahead, as mentioned. As we know from some of our basements that have been flooded or getting damp or just are damp year round, no matter what the rain does, a nice thing about the air source heat pump water heaters is that they do tend to provide some dehumidification benefits to help with some dampness. So if you have standing water, you still might have some other issues going on, but dehumidification is definitely something that's a positive. The nice thing about these types of water heaters is unlike like physical heating systems that you have in your home where you have to worry about under or oversizing it, heat pump water heaters are pretty forgiving. If you oversize it, you're not using necessarily more energy or paying extra. So if you're like, well, I have a 50 gallon right now, should I get the same thing? If you want to bump it to like a 60 or 65, that's totally fine to do. I was doing a little bit of some fun research because people like looking at numbers on annual savings. So for folks who have adopted heat pump water heaters, the air source version, for a 2 to 4 person household, we see a savings of anything from about $170 to $350. So for example, here in this picture, this is Kevin. He is one of our residents in the area we serve. And he and his wife and 2 kids used to have a 40 gallon natural gas water heater. And he was like, as they get older, the kids are definitely going to be using more water. So he bumped up to a 65 gallon. So he will likely see a $350 possible savings. And these numbers are based on current NYSEG rates, which is about 13 cents per kilowatt hour. So that's how he generated those numbers. All right, we're looking as well as pros, cons. So heat pump water heaters They are noisy. Again, another great reason why they live in our basement. So they will, again, cool the space around the area because that's heating your doing the heating for your hot water needs. So that requires a space that's roughly 12 by 12 feet. So I like to picture like my grandfather, who's about 6 feet tall. And if, he laid down twice, that's 12 feet. So then a 12 by 12 feet. So that's kind of the way I think about it. If you're thinking of a cubic feet, that would be anything from, about 750 to maybe like 1,000 cubic feet on that. So again, these are not super friendly when it comes to conditioned space basements. So these would be for basements where you're not having a living space or something of that nature, and crawl spaces will not be tall enough. So they are about 5 to 6 feet tall, as mentioned. So good amount of clearance is important. And so this is actually an example of someone's old natural gas water heater. This was Kevin's original 40-gallon natural gas system. And then he was able to put in heat pump water heater and upgrade to 65 gallons. So there's a bit of a difference because of gallon size, and also they just are bigger in general. So what are some typical costs that we might be seeing for heat pump water heaters? So for like installations, we might be seeing anything from about $2,500 to $3,500. Adders that, just to be aware of, could be, does any electrical work need to be done? Any condensate management? Is there any kind of non-standard piping or valve work? Just to keep things in mind for perspective. So typical sizes we'll see for these water heaters can be like 50 to 80 gallons is fairly typical. We don't really go over like 120 gallons when it comes to residential sizes. All right, so we talked about some pros and cons, how it functions. Maybe you're starting to envision this in your own basement or a family member or friend's basement, but maybe you just need to think about more what will maybe make this a good fit. So some different things to think about is like, are you a household who is on like propane or fuel oil, electric resistance, where it's really expensive? Do you have a boiler system that has your hot water tied in, and maybe you're putting in air source heat pumps? So, you can't tie in a hot water system to air source heat pumps. So you need a separate hot water heating system. Do you have the space in your basement? Is your ceiling high enough? Is there enough room? Again, are you okay with it being cooler down there? Maybe just have a workshop kind of thing, or some tools stored down there. So different things to think about. That kind of wraps up our air source heat pump water heaters. So I'm going to go ahead and turn this over and introduce Kevin Ryan. Kevin's coming next. Sorry about that, folks. Ryan from Day Electric is one of our amazing vetted program contractors that we work with. And I'm going to go ahead and let him chat more about the ground source heat pump water heater option 1. All right, go ahead, Ryan, take it away. Oh, make sure you're unmuted.
Forgot about that. Thanks, Eric.
No worries.
So the option 1 for the ground source heat pump water heater scenario we're talking about can provide, or does provide, 100% of your hot water needs. It is generally it's a standalone 2 or 3 ton hot water only dedicated unit that will share in conjunction the same loop field and the same flow center as your heat pump, whether it be forced air or water to water. And when the heat pump calls, there's a pump that goes in between the hot water tank and the unit. When the pump will turn on based on settings inside there and sample the water every 3 to 4 minutes to see if the heat pump actually needs to turn on. And if it does, it sends a signal to the other unit and generally will ramp up or down the flow center, whatever it's asking for, and basically transfers fluid from the loop field to that heat pump, heats the water up, and you're getting all your hot water needs off of that small heat pump. There is generally a auxiliary element inside of there. If something were to happen, you could turn the hot water on and at least have the top half of the tank for emergency purpose, or if you had a huge demand for hot water. And you should have very little hot water bill after that is installed. You have the initial cost, but after that, it's very, very efficient to run.
And then Ryan, how does that work? Does it look really different if it's tied into like a water-based ground source heat pump system versus like a ducted ground source heat pump system?
Nope, same unit, same flow center, It's a small unit that goes off the side of it, and it looks exactly the same. You have two things. You have the hot water tank plus the small unit, and then air source or water. It doesn't matter what you're tying it into on that side, as long as the flow center is sized appropriately to handle that load.
Oh, cool. And then does it cost much more usually to add that into your ground source heat pump system? You know, because you're thinking about like the ratios, you know, it sounds like it wouldn't cost much more to add it in. I was thinking.
It is pretty expensive, actually pretty expensive. It's generally at least double what an air source or a heat pump hot water would be. And there used to be a much better rebate than there is now. And once utilities took the rebates over, that rebate went away. So yeah, much more difficult to see the savings in that setup. Mm-hmm. It's much more common in new construction.
Okay. Yeah, and then for like folks who have been like adopting putting the ground source heat pump water tied in, what have they been excited about with it? Like what's gotten them to be like, yeah, I want to tie it right in?
Now with no rebate, really, essentially, it's been basically just a matter of them not wanting to run fossil fuels, and they really just want 100% of their hot water off the geo.
Nice. All right, great. All right, so if we have more questions for Ryan, we'll make sure to leave those open, but we'll go ahead and hop to our second option for ground source heat pumps, Desuperheater. So Steve, why don't you metaphorically step on up? Steve works with Lake Country Geothermal and is another one of our excited program contractors. So Steve, this is your expertise, so I'll let you take it away.
Great, thanks Erica. So in this scenario, we're not doing 100% of the potable hot water needs, but there's a common option on most water to air heat pumps. That is the heat pumps that will do forced air ducted systems, and on many of the water to water heat pumps. And you'll hear it referred to as a desuperheater. I'm not going to talk about how it technically works, because you'll just glaze over on that.
No, that's no worries. Could you chat a little bit about the different components we see in these like pictures, just to like give an understanding for folks who might kind of be envisioning it in their home?
Sure, but let me describe just how it works from a practical standpoint. Whenever the heat pump is doing space heating or cooling, a little bit of that heat can be redirected to your potable water system. So if the heat pump is on doing heating or cooling, you can be doing a little bit of preheating of your potable hot water. There are two general setups for that. Either your heat pump is directly connected to your primary hot water tank, or more commonly, which enables you to take more advantage of the feature, there's an intermediate tank, a preheat tank, if you will. We simply use a 40-gallon electric tank and just don't use the electric. Mm-hmm. And whenever the system's on, it puts a little heat into that tank, and that tank then effectively becomes the cold water supply to your primary hot water tank, be that a tank or tankless. So you might imagine in the middle of winter, when the heat pump is running quite a bit, that the preheat tank is likely to be 120, 130 degrees. And so as the quote unquote cold water supply to your primary tank is simply a pass through and virtually no energy used there at all. In the shoulder seasons or in summer and air conditioning season, when a little bit lighter use on heat pump, you're still getting preheat, but that holding tank might be 70 to 85 degrees, let's say. Much warmer than coming in from the street at 50 degrees. So it's still saving you a fair bit as your cold water supply, much warmer than it would be otherwise. It depends on your water usage, but as a rough number in a 2-tank system, you might expect 40% of your potable hot water energy to be handled by the geo system. If you have just a single tank, no preheat tank, we typically figure that's about 20%.
Okay. And then what's pushed folks on your end to be excited to like adopt like a desuperheater as like an option usually?
First of all, the option is very cheap, and so the incremental payback is pretty quick. In
Okay.
fact, I can't recall the last time that I installed a system that had a desuperheater option and the client chose not to do it.
No, that's really exciting. No, and it looks neat in the images too to see how it functions and is laid out as well. Any big differences you want to mention? You might have covered it a bit before, but just to clarify for the water-based versus the ducted system. And can you do a bit of a reminder on like what a water-based system is versus ducted, like what that might look
Sure.
like?
Yeah, there are two general types of geothermal heat pumps. One is called water to water and the other one's water to air. The first part of that water to water or water to air is referring to the loop outside. The second part is what does the heat pump directly transfer its heat to? So if you're looking at a boiler replacement, you're wanting to get a heat pump that's water to water. You take the heat from the loop, the heat pump concentrates it and transfers it directly to water. And then you can do a host of different things with that, including baseboard, radiant flooring, hydronic air handlers. A water to air system is usually a packaged system where it's a heat pump on the bottom and a blower on top. And we commonly think of it as a slip under for a furnace as opposed to a boiler furnace replacement. Now, both of them will have desuperheater options. I would like to, if you wouldn't mind, Erica, touch on a third means to do potable hot water with geothermal system.
Sure, go right ahead, Steve.
There are special types of water to water heat pumps that can do much higher water temperatures than your typical water to water heat pump, which is usually limited to about 118, 120 degrees. And you'll commonly see those when you're doing a baseboard conversion. Those water to water heat pumps can achieve water temperatures of 130, 140, in some cases even 150 degrees. And for those who have boilers, they'll be familiar with this. Those type of heat pumps can feed an indirect hot water tank, which, unlike your conventional hot water tank, it has a coil of stainless steel or copper inside the tank. And in that coil runs the hydronic water, as an example, and the bath around it is your potable water. And so these type of heat pumps, while they're also doing your space conditioning as a separate zone, they're doing your potable hot water with an indirect hot water tank.
Awesome. Oh, cool, Steve. Learned something new today. Thank you so much. All right, so with that, thank you, Ryan and Steve, for covering the bases on those. I'm going to go continue with the rest of some other exciting information. So thank you. All right, so hopefully no one's tired yet. It is lunchtime, so everyone should be perked up by whatever they're munching on. But let's heat things up by chatting a bit about some incentives and finance options for these exciting options we now have available to us. So for hot water heat pump water heaters that are 120 gallons or less, which again, we typically see in residential homes or smaller businesses. There are a bulk of incentives are through the utility companies. So for example, for NYSEGs, it is a $700 incentive if you're getting an air source heat pump water heater. Again, that's the standalone one. You can get that incentive whether you do a self-installment or going through a certified contractor. And there's also a possible $300 federal tax credit pending your tax liability. So check with your tax person if you might be able to access that. For the ground source heat pump water heaters, the 100% domestic hot water need ones, that is a $900 incentive. And for the desuperheaters, that is a $100 incentive. If you're putting in, the exciting thing is if you're putting in a whole home air or ground source heat pump heating and cooling system, and you decide to put in an air or ground source heat pump water heater, there is a $250 bonus, which I am very excited about. The bonus is, however, not applicable for desuperheaters, just to be transparent about that. If you are a municipal electric customer, say you're with Bath Electric or like Penn Electric, hopefully I'm not missing any other ones in our counties, there is a program called the Independent Energy Efficiency Program that is run. And their incentives is whether you get an air or ground source heat pump water heater, it's a $750 incentive. The air one, you can technically do a self-install or have a contractor of your choice put it in. And of course, still the $300 federal tax credit for the air source version pending tax liability, the same, and also $100 for the desuperheater. So the incentives are actually pretty comparable, which is really exciting. The only thing is that you cannot do it for new construction if you're on municipal electric. So what if your finances are maybe a bit tight, but you really would like to explore one of these options and see if it's feasible? So NYSERDA does have a program called Assisted Home Performance. And we chatted about it in our Weatherization 101 session a while back, but just a quick reminder, it's a 50-50 matching incentive that does up to $5,000 in matching funds. So for example, if it was like $10,000 of work to be done, you would put in $5,000, NYSERDA would match that. Your gross income for income eligibility, if we're looking like a household of four, the cutoff is a little over $80,000 at gross income. But yeah, that can a lot of times be put towards a heat pump water heater, which is really exciting and brings the price way down. That as well as NYSERDA offers low interest loans at about 3.5% is the lowest rate, might be a bit above that, but that's the lowest one. So we also have a partner program, Sustainable Tompkins, who's transitioning to Sustainable FLX, does have what's called a Finger Lakes Climate Fund grant. Funds penned availability. This is based on a carbon offset fund put in by residents and small businesses, also with support from some of our program contractors as well. So traditionally it covers Hector and Covert over in Seneca County, but we're hoping to see if that may expand across our region. So stay tuned on that. But the max amount can be awarded as $2,500. So some of those different combinations, as well as the NYSEG incentives, or NYSEG incentives, can really help make that more feasible. All right, but what if I'm a small business or a nonprofit? What can I access? So we actually had a speaker, Gary Pereira, a while back. He is in charge of the USDA Rural Energy for America program, REAP for short. And any kind of real small businesses or egg producers can go for these competitive grants that are held at the end of October and end of March. There's different amounts you can go for. I think one is like a 20,000 and under, and one's over that amount. So lots of cool options there. These are just for small businesses and can be for any type of electric customer, just not for new construction. If you're with NYSEG and small business and you're doing something that's less than 120 gallons, we refer to the prior incentives that were mentioned. But say you have a heat pump water heater that's over 120 gallons, NYSEG's incentive is based on $80 per million BTUs British thermal units, just a heating measurement that they use of annual energy savings. And this is open to small businesses, nonprofits, etc. Okay, financing options. I know all the fun stuff towards the end, right? So if you're residential looking for a heat pump water heater of any of those types, NYSERDA low interest loans of 3.5 to 7.5%. There is, if you're a Seneca or Schuyler resident, there's Alternatives Federal Credit Union offers special energy efficiency loans you might be able to tap into. And there's also your typical credit unions and traditional banking. Small business, and again, there's the USDA. And if you're a bit of a bigger business, there's some loan guarantees. Also, our partner Steps over in Seneca County actually told us they have a micro enterprise grant loan option. So if you are in the southern part of Seneca and you're a new business or pre-existing business, there's some grant and or loan options that can be explored. So we're excited to chat with folks about that. There's also the special NYSERDA loans for small businesses and nonprofits, credit unions, traditional banking, and then our set of vetted program contractors also have some financing options, so you can figure out what's the best fit for you. Okay, we have been through a lot. Are there any other questions? Kevin, do we have anything in the chat concerning any of the other topics we chatted about prior?
There are no questions currently, Erica.
Okay, perfect. I think the only question I had, if any of the contractors know, for the federal tax credit for the air source heat pump water heaters, do we know currently when that has to be installed by to get that tax incentive?
Matt, you know the dates?
The federal tax credit for air source?
Yeah.
That tax credit is tied to the Energy Star tax credit. So as long as it's installed in that calendar year, you can claim it. Now, every year the Energy Star tax credit gets revised, but as far as I know, you should be fine to be able to claim it in the year it's installed for the following tax year. So.
Okay, so for like the heat pump water heaters, if they get installed by the end of 2021, they'd be locked into that tax credit amount, the $300?
Correct. Yeah, that's how any tax credit works. It has to be installed in that tax year.
Okay, great. All right, we'll keep going then. So let's energize and get funky with some of our neighbors have been doing some of these adoptions already for heat pump water heaters to help with some energy costs. So we're just going to list off a couple quick examples just to give you a bit of a taste. I worked with a woman, Patty, who lives over in Seneca County. She had a heat pump water heater installed in her home. Her old one, she sent me some pictures. It was pretty rusty. It was an electric one, which means it's always running on electric resistance, which is expensive to run on. And so she was like, nope, it's starting to go, it's getting old, and we're gonna put in a 40-gallon air source heat pump water heater. So her total cost with how she went about the installment was just a bit over $1,500. And she was able to get the $700 NYSEG incentive to bring that down to about $830. So it was something she's really excited about. At first, she was a bit hesitant. She was like, no, I think I want to get an on-demand. And then the more we chatted about, well, if it's 2 to 3 times more efficient than the on-demand, so you're saving that much more. You're not using electric resistance, and you're getting the $700 NYSEG incentive. That payback is going to be really quick. And she's like, you know what? Let's go for it. So she is very happy so far with that. And we're going to be checking back with her in a couple months to see how things have been progressing. According to the energy label, if you ever see on like your refrigerator or some of your other appliances, there's usually like that yellow sticker. So on hers, it was saying the running cost is thought to be about a little over $100 a year. So we'll see how that pans out. So that's a bit about Patty's. And we're going to go ahead and have Matt from Helco, one of our other program contractors. Thanks for coming on today, Matt. I know it's been a busy day for you. So if you want to go ahead and chat about Melissa's story. Oh, and just make sure to unmute yourself.
Can you hear me?
Yep, you sound good.
Oh, okie dokie. Sorry, like juggling a lot of things today. Okay, so yeah, so what we do with Melissa is she had, since we're kind of focusing on water heat, we did a lot of stuff with Melissa, including a whole air source heat pump system and some insulation work. But particularly the air source heat pump water heater we put in, they had an old propane water heater. And when I say old, it was old. And one of the things that I think gets missed a lot of the times when we're talking about air source heat pump water heaters, or any heat pump water heater really, is the not only the added benefit of cost savings, but also health and safety. So they are there's no venting. So a fossil fuel system has to vent. Melissa's water heater was not venting correctly. It was spilling products of combustion into the basement. Most older homes with short basements and conventional water heaters are never vented correctly. So they never draft the way they're supposed to, mainly because there's not enough room, because you need to go up and out. It also shared a vent with an oil boiler, which we also took offline, which is, again, mixing fuels is not a good idea. Putting in a heat pump water heater got rid of the propane consumption, which was expensive even for just 2 folks in the house. And then, we don't have to worry about carbon monoxide. We don't have to worry about products of combustion spilling or gas leaks or oil leaks or any of this other stuff because we're not burning anything. So it was kind of a no-brainer. And then we got the different incentives with the utility rebates through NYSEG, and this was part of a larger project with the assisted home performance program and a program which has since ran out of money that actually covered a larger grant as part of a test pilot program. So we were able to do quite a bit, and it was pretty impactful. And I haven't heard any complaints, so I'm assuming everything's working just fine. An air source heat pump water heater, I've got one in my own home, so I can tell you from firsthand they work very well. When it comes to heat pumps, I call it the entry level. It's sort of dipping your toe in the pool of the heat pump world, and it is it's an easy one. Most homes, it's easy to swap out a fossil fuel or system without having to screw around too much with the electric. And of course, if you have an electric water heater, it's even easier. But there's really no, other than a ground source, which is a whole other animal, there's really no cheaper way to heat your water or more effective way to really do it. So they do have their limitations. Things have to be considered, but for the most part, you can make it work almost anywhere, with the exception of a mobile home. Haven't figured that one out yet. But it's kind of the low-hanging fruit of the heat pump world.
Yeah, and the nice thing is when using our contractors, they're all certified to access all of these NYSEG and other incentives. So they'll do all the work. They'll check for if there's any permits that are needed. They'll do the safety checks, and they'll do kind of all the like, oh, we need this part and this piece. So it ends up being like a really good deal working with the contractors because they're professionals. They know how to install it correctly and take care of everything for you. So Melissa seems very happy, and I'll probably be seeing her in the next couple of weeks after she's gotten her air source heat pump heating and cooling put in. So thank you so much, Matt.
No problem. Yeah, I know that they were really looking forward to it. I think we're buttoning that up this week. So
yep, that's coming soon. Sounds good. All right. And so we heard about these exciting stories from folks. And just a reminder, with climate change coming in, this kind of wraps into heat pumps in general, heating and cooling, hot water needs. But, as things heat up and different types of fuels are getting more expensive, or there's fossil fuel volatility where, it's going up and down, like propane and oil, for example, things are going to get more expensive. We're going to be relying on some of these technologies more to help cut back the prices and also help decrease our carbon footprint. So this is, as Matt mentioned, low-hanging fruit and something really easy to do if you're interested. So again, ask yourself not, can I afford this, but can you afford heating the way I do? And it's kind of a no-brainer when it comes to heat pump water here because the payback is so quick on that end. So what to do next? Kind of wrapping things up. We are here to help you year round. So feel free to give us a call or an email or a chat at an event or such, so that HeatSmart FLX South, our group, can get you started to help you navigate through the process. We'll get you connected to one of our program vetted contractors, have them pop out to do a site visit and get the work done. So good, smooth process. So today we're looking at having you know that we're here to help you reach your goals, that the heat pump water heaters of any type, the ground or air source ones, are real viable means to help with your domestic hot water needs, whether you have a home or business or a nonprofit. And know that it's easy to reach us. We'll be sharing our contact information, and feel free to engage with us. Give us a chat, become a volunteer, tell a friend, join the network, check our social media. Any of those or other pretty much works. So again, as we mentioned, this is the last of our webinar series the last of our webinars in our 5-part series. If you missed any past ones, no problem. Phew. We have them all recorded and slides are available online through this hyperlink on our page. Or if you don't have internet access or have some other barriers, give us a call and we can get the slides mailed out to you. Again, I'm Erica Herman. I'm the Heat Smart FLX South Campaign Director over at the Cooperative Extension in Schuyler, but again, serving the 4 counties region. And if you're not from this region, let us know because I probably have a sister program that can get you started. So again, we have a Facebook page, we have phone number, as well as a website and email. So with that, we are actually going to break off into, we're actually doing really well on timing. We have about 15 minutes left. And we're going to do some introductions with our contractor teammates, Daily Electric, Helco, Lake Country, and Van He Mechanical. And then we'll open it up to some questions or common things that they found that come up. So I'm going to go ahead and stop screen sharing. And why don't we go ahead and have everyone turn on their video so we can see everyone. Awesome. I know it takes a little time depending where you are. All right, and I know Matt's on the road, so we'll have him tune in a bit. But all right, welcome everyone. Let's go ahead through and we'll do the Hollywood Squares version and just tell us what your name is, maybe some key components of crew members people may interact with, and just a little bit of a sum up about where you're situated and what you're excited about and what technologies you cover and such. So I think we'll just go in alphabetical order. So Ryan, why don't you go first?
Thanks, Erica. I love. Did I get it off? All right. Hi, my name's Ryan. Own Daily Electric in Penn Yan. We're a small business that specializes in geothermal and air source heat pump installations and residential plumbing and electric. Excited to be part of the Finger Lakes Smart South program. We're also part of a couple other programs. And we mainly focus on installations of water furnace products. We install GRE and LG air source products. We currently have 20 employees that 5 service guys, and then most of the other guys mainly do HVAC installations. We service about a 2-hour radius south, not a whole lot north. So we don't have to Van He guys up there all over the place. So we stay down in the southern area. But my dad started business in the late 90s. I took it over in the early 2000s, and my wife runs pretty much day-to-day operations of everything. And the rest of us handle all the stuff out in the field with the guys and everything for installations. We've slowly grown over the years and try to keep doing more and more geo.
Sounds good. And so Leah's your wife, right? She's the one who handles a lot of the affairs as well. That's Leah, you said?
Yep.
Perfect. Very cool. Well, thanks, Ryan. Matt, why don't you go next?
Hello, my name is Matt Dennis with Halco Energy. A little bit about Halco. We are a whole home performance company, which means we do everything. Our motto is, yes, we do that. So if it has to do with home energy, home comfort, we take care of it. So HVAC, heat pumps, ground source heat pumps, air source, traditional HVAC, plumbing, electric, insulation, basement waterproofing, windows and doors, solar, and on and on and on. So pretty much anything in the house we can take care of for you. We've got 150 employees. We cover 26 counties throughout Central New York, the Finger Lakes, and the Southern Tier. Been in business since 1984. We've got open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. And that's legit. So if you were to call us in the middle of the night on a Christmas Day, a real life person
not Christmas Day.
No, it happens every time. We get those emergency calls because unfortunately things break at Christmas too. But you know, the idea is you know, we want to be we want customers for life. We've got multi-generational customers over the years. We want to be the ones that folks call when they have a problem. Because we can solve most of them. I can literally come into your house and pretty much handle anything under the roof, other than the roof. We don't do roofs. And if we can't do it, I can certainly tell you somebody that can. But we're happy to be part of the Heat Smart programs. This is we're partnered with multiple of these programs throughout our service area, and you know, it's great because this is what we've been doing for many years. We've been, home performance and home efficiencies and clean energies for much longer than it has been sort of commonplace to talk about, and much before these Heat Smart programs came along. So we were happy somebody else is starting to champion it, because it's what we've been doing for a very long time.
Yeah. Okay.
So
Awesome.
yeah, if you call, there's a good chance I'll actually be the one to come out and see you. If not, one of my colleagues. But like I said, we're happy to be part of this, and hopefully we can help you out, sort out some issues with you.
Sounds good. Thanks, Matt. And I'm actually extremely excited. Steve actually joined our Heat Smart. It's his first time with the Heat Smarts, and we're so excited and lucky to have him with all the specialties he has. So Steve, why don't you go ahead and chat about yourself and your crew and all that good stuff?
Sure. Thanks, Erica. I just want to first understand what alphabet do you work from in terms of alphabetical?
Oh, I went by the companies. I realized.
Okay. All
I was
right.
like, oh, I didn't specify that. Sorry about that, Steve.
We're I guess we're the new kid on the block. We've been around since 2016. We specialize, unlike Halco. We're at the other end of the spectrum where we do just a couple things, and we think we do it really well. Geothermal heat pumps and hydronic heating and cooling. In fact, we're doing our first radiant cooling system as we speak, which is kind of fun. For those that know hydronics. We've got 7 employees. Last year we had significantly less. Next year we'll have significantly more. So we're on a high growth curve. We're located in Walworth, which is about 20 minutes east of Rochester, but our coverage area is south to the Pennsylvania border, essentially Western New York, and a little bit of the Adirondacks occasionally. So yeah, we travel a little bit to being a specialty firm. What else can I tell you about me?
Yeah, go ahead.
I came from the corporate world, so I have a engineering background and over time a business background. And when I stumbled upon geothermal, to be honest with you, in 2015 or 2014, I didn't even know what the heck it was. And within 3 to 6 months of doing some homework, I'm thinking, okay, why isn't everybody doing this? And that led me to start up Lake Country Geothermal. And I still ask the question, why isn't almost everybody doing this?
Motion in progress, right?
Yeah, that's right.
And I was actually excited that one of your staff members used to work at the school that I went to in Perry, New York. Perry, New York. Oh, we went through this a couple weeks ago. I'm trying to remember, but you had those great bios about your
Jacob.
No, it was a woman, but she used to do something with like finances or something like that.
Oh, and
so I was like, that's cool connection, small world. So yeah. Awesome. Thanks, Steve.
We have a pretty eclectic team.
Yeah, and Steve does everyone does a lot with education, but I know it's something that your crew prides yourself on as well. So
yeah.
Awesome. Kevin, if you are still there, I know it's been a busy day for everyone. Kevin, if you're free, would you like to go ahead and introduce yourself, your company, your crew, and all that good stuff?
Sure. Kevin Moravik, president of Van He Heating and Barney Moravik Incorporated. The drilling side is Barney Moravik Incorporated. We were founded in 1934, located in Penn Yan. The heating company was founded in 1959. We've been installing geothermals since 1982. Predates me a little bit, but a lot of those systems we still serve, and we're actually starting to get into replacement cycle on some of those original New York installations. We have a very wide service territory, pretty much close to Buffalo, Utica. We're doing a project in the Thousand Islands right now, down to the southern tier as well. We specialize in new construction, hydronic applications, radiant applications, and we love it. It's a lot of fun. I'm a board member for New York Geo. That's our state trade organization. So we get a voice and a seat at the table when it comes to talking about rebates and incentives and program designs. Sometimes we wish our voice was a little bit louder or heard a little bit differently, but we do the best with what we can. So it's been a pleasure. Thank you.
Awesome. All right, so going into some Q&A, I don't think we had any questions in the chat, and I will check Facebook. So I think it comes to some, okay, cool. Thanks for clarifying, Kevin. So some other kind of common questions that we kind of see coming in, I think we'll just kind of go in that order again. So Ryan, for when it comes to ground source heat pump water heaters, are there any kind of, extra things that sometimes have to be put in for like additional costs or things for people to keep in mind? Like I know for like air source heat pumps, water heaters, there's like a condensate management. So is there anything just for folks to keep in mind when putting in that type of water heater, the ground source heat pump one?
Space, you're adding an extra heat pump down there. Oh
yeah, do you need more space than an air source heat pump water heater?
Yeah, so the hot water tank is essentially the same size as an air source unit, but then you also have the additional heat pump sitting next to it that does heating. So there's always more square footage needed in that room. You also have power additional needs for when that heat pump turns on. You have a circuit running to that heat pump, but you also do have a circuit running to the hot water tank that acts as a backup. I can't think of anything else additional wise that you really need.
Okay.
More wiring stuff, but nothing crazy really. Besides space.
Space, that's the big one. Okay, yeah. That's helpful. And then Steve, if you are putting in like a ground source heat pump water heater, Desuperheater, how many more amps, if that's the right measurement, would you need for that? Or or if you want to explain that more, because, coming from like a newbie perspective on that.
I honestly don't have a clue, Erica. But if I could take a shot at another question of what should customers or homeowners think about high level when they're considering adding domestic hot water heating to their geosystem?
Yeah.
Do the economics. What's the incremental cost of adding to your space heating and cooling geosystem, in this case, of adding the additional feature of potable hot water, regardless of whether it's Desuperheater or dedicated hot water heater or indirect hot water tank? Ask your contractor to break it out and what's the incremental cost of adding potable hot water. Because it isn't always obvious that it's the right thing to do from an economic standpoint. For households where you've got family of 6 or something like that, where they're huge water use, that's a no-brainer. But if it's only 2 or 3 of you, it may not be obvious that it makes economic sense. So that's
helpful, because I think we just had a family of 8 reach out to us recently. So that's helpful to know.
So like a true politician, I changed the question and answered a different
one. That's okay. That's okay. That was still really helpful, Steve. Matt, if someone's putting an air source heat pump water in, about how many amps does that take? Just for like the standalone one?
Well, it's you're talking about an air source heat pump water heater?
Yeah. Yep, just the kind of low hanging fruit one.
It's a 30 amp breaker, but that's a code thing. You're not drawing 30 amps, but it also needs to be there to support the electric backup. As far as what the heat pump by itself will draw, I'd say less than 10. Nice. But I don't know exactly. I'd have to look at the engineering books to give you a firm answer.
Oh, that's helpful.
But it's not very much. And again, the only reason you need that particular size breaker in the box is because it's got to kick on. It's got 2 electric elements that if it ever has to kick on, it needs the same power electric water heater would need.
Okay, that's helpful. Great, thanks. And Kevin, so when we were looking at the diagram earlier of like an air source heat pump water heater, we kind of have like the standard water heater look, and then you have the heat pump water heater or the heat pump element on the top. Can you kind of explain the kind of guts comparison between that and the ground source heat pump water heater? And you feel free to do the Desuperheater too, or just focus on one or the other, just to get kind of like a little technical.
Well, guts wise, they're both heat pumps. So the only thing that really they have on the top is just the air exchanger, where you're drawing heat from your basement, whether it's winter or summer, and the compressor multiplies that and generates hot water through a fun process. It's no different than the ground source version. The only thing that ground source has is it's a much bigger box that contains that compressor. It's a bigger compressor. You know, most air source heat pump hot water heaters, their air source side is about 4,000 to 5,000 watts an hour. The ground source version, depending on what you do, a Desuperheater is 10% of system capacity. The 100% is, we've typically installed the NSW 025 by water furnace, and that's about 25,000 BTUs an hour. So it's more in line with a true hot water heater. It's got a lot greater generation capacity. The indirect version doesn't really take up any more room. It's a heat exchanger. They're either inside a tank or external. Operationally, they're all heat pumps. So the only difference is the source. Our source and ground source is outside. Air source, the source is the air in your basement.
That's a perfect wrap up, Kevin. Thank you so much. Thank you all for coming out. I almost said this evening, but this is actually a lunchtime session. So if you haven't had lunch, please go and eat. I know everyone has a busy day. I know one of you is going on an exciting trip. So have fun, Ryan. Please bring back some of the warmth, because I'm sure it'll get cooler here. All right. Well, with that, thank you, everyone. Have a great night. I'll be posting this video within probably about a week, and all of the other past recordings and videos, as well as slides, are currently available. So reach out if you have any questions so we can get you connected to one of these awesome folks that we partner with. Have a great day, everyone.
Sure.